talking about how it's so nice that Roger knows how to do everything. We as a team will have a great meeting. So
we will. Yep.
But I do think you have everyone here.
Okay. With that, I'd like to, are we got all the electronics working, cameras going? Okay. All right. With that, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the February 14th, 2022 Harbor Commission meeting. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. And thanks for joining us. And I just realized I've opened the wrong agenda packet, so we're already off the rails. In
the right order, though.
Yep. Okay. Got it. All right, here we go. Do you do the roll call or do I?
Yes, I will do the roll call.
Okay.
Light.
Present.
Commissioner Kilroy.
Here.
Commissioner Callahan.
Here.
Commissioner Kazan.
Here.
Commissioner Walters.
Here.
Co-Chair Bauer.
Here.
And Chair Carlson.
Here. Okay, Commissioner Light, would you lead us in the salute to the flag?
I will. Everybody stand, hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance
to
the
flag of the United States of America,
Republic
which stands
one
nation under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Great job,
Thanks.
everybody.
Okay, next item is approving the order of agenda. Anybody have anything like to pull?
So moved. Second.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, order of agenda is approved. Blue folder items. We did have one thing sent out recently. Did everybody get that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes, Chair,
Okay.
just for the record, everyone did. We do have a blue folder item for J1, which is the skateboard facility. It is a PowerPoint presentation from Antonio Gardia, who is our senior planner, who will present later on in the meeting.
Thanks. Okay. Okay. Good that everybody got that. Let's move on to the consent calendar. That's affidavit of posting and approval of the minutes and any excluded items. Are there any excluded items? Does anybody want to pull anything from the consent calendar, make any changes to the minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thanks. We are up to skipping over excluded consent calendar items. We don't have any. We are up to public participation on non-agenda items.
If I could ask Elizabeth, do we have anyone on Zoom or any e-comments for this section?
If there's anyone, we have two attendees. If either one of you would like to speak on non-agenda items, I would ask that you raise your hand. And I don't see anyone raising their hands, so we are good to go.
No emails or electronic communication?
No e-comments on non-agenda items and no emails.
Great. Okay. We are up to ex parte communication. I'm not used to that section being here. I thought that came at the end. Do we have any ex parte communication?
Regarding J1, the public hearing. Nope.
So I had some email with staff on the topic, and that's it.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Let's see. Okay. We are up to public hearings then. Public hearing J1.
All right. Commissioners, tonight we're holding a public hearing to consider land use entitlements to construct and operate a skateboard facility in parcel 10. We have multiple people here on hand who will walk us through the process and the design. We will first start with Antonio Gardia, senior planner, who will provide us with a PowerPoint presentation, followed by Andy Wingy, city engineer, and we also have Vince O'Neill from Spawn Ranch, who will talk about the design. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Antonio.
Do we need a motion to open the public hearing, or are we going to do that after staff?
Let's see. Yes, let's go ahead and do that. Thank you, Matt.
All right. Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion passes. Let's go into the public hearing.
Antonio.
Thanks, man.
Thank you all. So I'm going to try and share my screen here. And for some reason, it just totally went blank on me.
Sounds like my camera.
Let's see. Something is not going right. Hang on. Let me try one more time. I just got a new computer, so I'm like still kind of fumbling with it a little bit. So let me go back and see if I can't try this one more time. Hopefully this, I mean, you got the presentation today, so I hope that everyone got to see that.
Yeah, if this is the blue folder presentation, we need to send it out on over the internet. Can someone else share it on their screen?
Yeah, let me see.
Let me see. Yeah, something.
I have it up, Antonio, if you need me to share it.
Yeah, would you mind, Andy? Yeah, for some reason I can't access it from my computer. And I'll just cue you to move forward with the slides.
How does that work?
That's perfect.
working.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Andy. I appreciate that. So again, this item was considered by the Harbor Commission back in September of 2020 as a conceptual item that was part of a larger skate park alternatives presentation that included Pad 10 as one of the preferred alternatives. Since then, the City Council directed staff to issue an RFP for the design build-up alternatives, including the subject location as one of the preferred sites. The recreation facility involves consideration of 3 entitlements: a CUP, design review, and a coastal development permit. And the facilities would be designed primarily for skateboarding uses with 8 permanent features. Next slide. Thank you. So the site's located in the coastal commercial CC1 zone. It's highlighted there by the blue octagonal. I guess it's an octagonal. It allows the public recreation facilities as a conditionally permitted use. The development standards limit the height of the structures on this parcel to 40 feet and 1 story, and leaves the setbacks to the development review process. There is an overall limitation on floor area, but with these not being exactly buildings, that isn't necessarily applicable in this case. So again, there are 4 different criteria for approval of a conditional use permit. 1 is consistency with the general plan and the coastal land use plan. 2 is there adequate access to the street for the traffic that's going to be generated from this use. 3, we have to make a finding that there's no adverse effect on properties. And then 4, that there's conditions that are imposed to protect the public general health, safety, and welfare. Next slide. So in the development standards, it talks about any development over 500 square feet requires design review by the commission. Anything less than 500 square feet could be done administratively, and that it's subject to a coastal development permit. And there's a separate process for that as well. In some cases, if this were administrative, the CDP could be filed under an exemption, but because there's other entitlements that are required, it gets bundled up, and it's just one extra land use entitlement that's necessary in this case. The main item there, again, in the development standards for the CUP is that there be continuous public access along the seaward side of International Boardwalk. So that needs to be provided. Now, the findings for the Harbor Commission design review are really focused on site planning and aesthetics and deal with building design. There's 8 findings that are required there, but they're very repetitive and some of them are not really applicable in this case. The findings for the coastal development permit are consistency with the LCP, conformity with public access and recreation policies of the Coastal Act, and CEQA clearance. Next slide. This is the site. This is a picture that I had taken from across the way there, and it gives you an idea of the entirety of the location. Again, the facility is allowed so long as it doesn't conflict with the coastal access and recreation policies. This would be a permanent installation of skateboarding ramps and rails. And so then because of that, it does trigger the CUP requirement. Now, tournaments have been held here in the past, and they've been, I think, co-sponsored with the police department. So there has been a history of allowing these types of uses at the site, be they temporary though. Now, in the conditional use permit findings, it talks about imposing conditions to mitigate for potential adverse impacts. And one of the main concerns that we had would be noise generated from the use. And so we felt that it was appropriate to impose the limitations on the hours of operation and have them coincide with the hours that the bathrooms are open. And I think those are typically, I can't remember exactly, but usually they're like 10 to sunset or something like that. Andy could probably remind me. Again, we don't anticipate that there be a lot of maintenance required for these facilities as they are permanent. And that was one of the considerations that was considered or taken. Well, that was one of the things that was highlighted in the previous presentations. Let's see. So next slide, please. So this is another picture of the kind of looking north. And again, it shows ample space around the facility for access to the existing restrooms. And as part of the layout, there is going to be some flat areas. And so it's going to hopefully lend itself to other activities. And then being that this is primarily a skateboarding facility, there is an idea that we would encourage multimodal transportation to get to the site. So we wouldn't expect that there would be parking impacts. Again, and the focus is that the facility serve primarily nearby residents. That's really kind of for local park facilities. They're really kind of geared to people in the immediate vicinity. Let's see, next slide. This is a picture that I took from the parking structure right above. And if we go to the next slide, it will kind of show you a little bit of what kind of take a picture where it was kind of comparable. And again, this shows how the ramps are oriented and the rail that's nearest to the pedestrian walkway. They're oriented inward and away from the water. And I know that this would hopefully help mitigate for the potential of any errant skateboards landing in the water. As previously noted, anything greater than 500 square feet requires design review. In this depiction here, it shows that the decals or murals would be the sea flora. And so that's important because that is one of the items that's in the Harbor Civic Center specific plan, that they have like a nautical theme. Let's see. The skateboarding facility is seen as ancillary to the main recreation activities on the pier, and it doesn't interfere with any of the fishing areas or walkways or any of the other recreational activities there. So more details are to follow. Like I mentioned, there's a number of different permanent structures that would be installed, but I'll leave that to the consultant to describe those items more in detail. Next slide. Again, this is kind of just highlighting some of the criteria that are considered under the different entitlements for the CUP, the design review, the coastal development permit. And I think that we've covered those in the attached resolution. There's some detail about specific recreation policies and goals that are included there as well. Those are some details that we always look into to make sure that they align with our general plan, but I'll won't belabor the point on that. Let's see, next slide. Again, staff's recommending that we open the public hearing, receiving the presentation from the designer, and then adopt the resolution approving these series of entitlements. I know that this is here from Swan Ranch, and Andy has a little bit more of the background on how we arrived here, but I did notice there's several hands up, and so we can take some preliminary questions.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, everyone, for coming here. I know it's a tough day to be here. So if everybody's celebrating after yesterday and today, and on top of all that, it's my birthday, so that's probably why everyone's celebrating and busy.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. Please do not sing. The Zoom Pledge of Allegiance is tough enough to get through. So I'll take the chair's prerogative and ask a couple questions. First of all, it looks great. Actually seeing the colors and the design, it's really going to be nice to have there. And I know something I was hoping for was to see, that it would still work with mixed uses, with adding a band to one of the risers or a yoga instructor or something. And it looks like that would work great if it's not too busy with skateboards. One thing we had discussed last time was the limited hours, and I'm curious how the limited hours would work with that low fence. If somebody can respond to that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to jump in. And good evening, everyone. Andy Wingy, the city engineer, and acting really on behalf of City Council as the applicant for this project. We have determined that this site is going to be an unattended site. In other words, the city is not going to control this site like a enclosed skate park you might find in other places. And so it will operate under the same kind of rules of operation that all of our parks do, where we have hours of operation set by city ordinance and then enforceable by the usual enforcement mechanisms, PD or whomever. So that's the intent here. There's no intent to seal the facility off, for instance, after hours, but instead to use the typical enforcement mechanisms for a closed park area. Okay, thanks. One of the enforcement mechanisms that the designer had talked about before was, closing the facility if there were problems with other facilities, with noise or people not cleaning up or whatever. These other facilities got closed for a day or two, just to show the users, hey, you got to take care of this if you want the privilege of using it. So. Yes, as an operator, the city will be able to chain it off or cone it off or create some kind of barrier to access, indicating that the facility is closed. I was trying to describe a physically sealed location, a fence around it, for instance, that couldn't be climbed or whatever. We're not really interested in going that direction. When the city takes on that kind of responsibility to be attended site, then we are incurring a different level of liability than an open site like this. So we're trying to walk that line a little bit here with the facility. And this is in line with what we're doing at Perry Park with, similar direction from council to install a facility that's unhosted and accessible during the time that the park is open. Okay.
Andy, this is Lori. Could you go back to the slide that shows the design? That would be helpful when you have this discussion. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. One of my other concerns about this versus just a regular city park is the noise from skateboards and hard concrete. And I know noise studies were done and it was kind of ambient noise, but I'm not sure it would be ambient noise going up into all those condominiums, at 2 a.m. And I also, we've had security concerns from the restaurants and their upstairs dining decks. So I wonder if this just leads to, an additional security concern. I hope this means we get, more security in the area and, more foot patrols from the police or whatever, just because there's, one more reason to go down there and look after things. So, maybe adding more stuff to this area will help with security overall. Another question I had on these fences is, I am not a skateboarder. Is that single low rail on the bottom adequate for stopping a board? You guys are the experts, so I assume it is, but.
Yeah, yes, it is. This is Vince with Spawn Ranch. Hey, everyone.
Thanks.
Yep. Yes, it is designed to stop a skateboard. And the other consideration with the fence was to match the aesthetic of the existing railing out there. So what we're showing here is still somewhat conceptual. For example, we're showing kind of a combination of the steel railing and then the wooden post to kind of, honor that aesthetic. The wood post could potentially go and we just do a steel railing that only matches in color. And then we beef up the railing in some capacity, whether it's more vertical pickets or horizontal beams across it. So I would say the fence or the railing, if you will, is still somewhat conceptual. But whatever we do, yes, the primary goal is to keep skateboards from shooting out.
Cool. Okay. With the fencing, have you checked with Public Works? Are they okay with the materials there? I know they're doing a lot of maintenance on other sections of fence, and they may have advice on.
Right. So I'm in the Public Works Department and actually putting together the railing project. So very familiar with the railing specifications down there. And thanks for the question. This is a joint effort, really. The city already hired Vince's company to do a design build contract. So their responsibility is really the skating elements themselves, and the city will be taking over the railing installation and whatever other ancillary pieces there are to this project. We're anticipating. We actually are thinking that by the time we get to be ready to install these railings, we'll be well into our pier railing replacement project, and could just add this work to that project to get this done in the time needed to open the park.
Great. Yeah. I know you guys have done a lot of maintenance on the railings around the pier, and there's no simple answer on structures near the ocean. But I figured you'd have good advice on it. What's the state of the bathrooms right there? Have those already been given a facelift, or are they about to be?
That is an excellent question that I do not know the answer to. I know we have a CIP program for restroom improvements on the pier. We are active in a project to replace the restrooms or remodel the restrooms at the end of the Mondstadt Pier. We are doing maintenance type work. In other words, not full remodel, but replacement of fixtures and doors and things like that in a number of the restrooms in the pier area. I'm not sure where these particular restrooms fall on that schedule, but we do have a program that is funded periodically, and I'm sure would fall into that cycle at the appropriate time.
Yeah, I know all the restrooms need work, and ideally all would be done before this summer comes, but you might look at that schedule and, and I know all the restaurants down there really need their restrooms done, but you might look at that schedule and make sure the ones right next to this are in, decent shape before this opens up and you start seeing more traffic in those things.
It's a good thought.
Yeah, just a piece of advice. So last time, one of the major concerns we had was how to get to this area without affecting nearby businesses. And that's not really addressed in the presentation. Do you see a good flow to get out to this area? And in particular, do you see a good flow to get bicycles to this area? Like, how do you, I see a lot of skateboarders now kind of on the upper deck above the International Boardwalk, and the flow to get from there to here is, up a stairway, across a couple bollards. You can't skate it. You can't take a bike on it. You certainly couldn't get an e-bike there. not a heavy one. Is there a good path for somebody to get out here?
Do you mean bicycle riding on the pier or just parking their bike here near the facility? Because I don't think riding is allowed on the pier currently.
That is correct.
We would probably want to focus e-bikes, especially parked. Maybe we can add some racks in the parking garage, for instance, for people to lock their bikes up there and then just hoof it, walk it, not skate it, but walk it from wherever they park to the facility. Commissioner Light brought that up in some email correspondence about the prohibitions against skating in this area and other activities that we would have to address through city ordinance. And we intend to do that once we kind of know we're moving forward here. So that's, bicycle riding. I think we would probably not want to, for instance, put racks in this area that might encourage riding where we don't want riding to be, where it's pedestrian conflict. And maybe just the walk from the parking structure, we could find a place to put some racks there, additional racks, if we didn't have enough capacity already to accommodate that.
Yeah, you can ride a bike pretty close to this. You could ride a bike on the bike path into the parking garage.
Yeah.
And then hit the ramps in the parking garage and come up onto the deck next to kind of that deck above Kincaid's.
Yeah, right. Up or down, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if up or down would be better.
And I think there's actually bicycle parking racks just behind the elevators there on that same floor. I walk that area at lunch periodically, and I think I'm seeing bike racks right there on that bike path level, just to the east of the elevator bank that's there.
Yeah, so I guess the other action I'd give you, and I'm happy to help. I'm down there a lot too, is to consider how you'd get there on a bicycle and where the closest bike rack might be, especially if you have, an expensive e-bike that you kind of want to keep one eye on. I mean, maybe we give up a couple parking places right there on the edge of one of the decks that you can see from this area, something like that.
Yeah.
The last question I have, and then I'll get to the hands I see up, is in this presentation or in the other presentation as part of the agenda, I saw there were 2 different funding packages. What's the difference in the two, and what level are we at?
Yeah, great question. I'd actually had a number of prepared comments I was going to go through before I get into the questions. That's fine. I don't mind answering them now, but I just want you to know I was intending to clarify some of that. But
sorry about that.
No problem at all. You've asked, if you don't mind, I can jump into that, or I can wait.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. You may answer other questions. Thanks.
So the proposal that you've seen in your packet, the several slides from the designer, one of them looks like this, includes 2 concepts. One is kind of the full, what we're calling the master plan concept, fully built out project, which this is a depiction of the one that's on the screen now. This is more project than our budget currently allows. But we thought it important to bring forward kind of the complete picture for your consideration tonight. And assuming approvals, we will move next to the City Council to present both this as an ultimate project and what we're calling our base plan, which is also in the packet. I think it starts on slide 12 of that package, which is some of these elements, but not all of them. And some of these elements less developed than they are shown in this depiction here. So those are the 2 packages. One is kind of the base plan, which is a viable facility. I think, and I'm not a skateboarder, but to me, it looks like plenty of good fun. And then if the council decides to put more money towards this, either right away or in the near future, we would kind of work into a phase 2 or do it all together, depending on what the funding timeline is to build it out. I did want to also say, as part of that discussion, that the artwork we're depicting here, I think looks great, but it's really just for a concept. We didn't commission Spawn Ranch to do artwork as part of this project. It's not what they do. I mean, they did a great job on the graphics, but it's not typically what they do. So that would be a separate commission project that we would take to the council that would go through the Art Commission, probably back through this commission as well. I'm not quite sure how the art program works in our city. That's handled by the Community Services Department. But we did want to at least present the idea that artwork could be a very attractive part of this project. And I think as depicted here, it does draw on a lot of themes and colors and aesthetics that make a lot of sense. So what we are presenting tonight is kind of the ultimate build out, kind of the vision for what we could do in the space. What we will build initially that's currently under contract is what we call our base design, unless the council intervenes when we bring it to them after this meeting and they decide that they'd like us to add money to this, or they fund this to do the complete build out or some portion thereof. So that's why we presented the two packages to you tonight. This is what we ultimately like to do, A, and then here's what we're already under contract to do if we can't find more funding to build this out completely.
And if I could add real quick, also the important thing about bringing the whole master plan is that you take a look at it now, and that way it doesn't have to come back for reconsideration at a future date. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
Great, thanks a lot. Was that the extent of your remarks? What else you wanted to say? Or?
Well, I had more to say if you'd like to hear.
Please, yeah.
Or I'm happy to wait for the questions. So I was going to go through a bit of the timeline. I'm not sure if that's necessary or important, but just big picture advocacy for a skate park project in the city, at least in the current iteration, started over 5 years ago. Brought forward by one of our residents who had been involved in development of skate parks on the East Coast. City Council took it up in 2017. We focused originally on Dominguez Park, and we had to do some geotechnical investigation there. Found it really possible but very expensive to build a skate facility at Dominguez Park due to the landfill, the subsoils there. Weren't adequate in the locations where we could put the park. Council very interested in a skate park still. The Galleria Mall proposed an idea to include skate park at one of their iterations up on the north end. In the fiscal year 1920 budget deliberations, money was included in the budget to do a feasibility study of a number of the city parks to see where a skate park facility might best be introduced. Spawn Ranch was brought on board later that summer to do that alternative study and introduce the idea that we didn't have to do a full-blown skate park at every possible location, that there were skate dots and skate spots and small parks and big parks, lots of different things we could do there. So they presented or reviewed 5 locations throughout the city at city parks and ranked them against each other on a number of criteria. I think we presented that to you years ago in 2020. When they did that initially with the city council, one of the locations that was being investigated was Zuliger Park, and the council felt like that might be too noisy in that location and asked us to consider at that time a 6th site here at Pad 10. And so Spawn Ranch was directed to add that location and come back with a ranking for this location. That was the point that we brought that conversation to the Harbor Commission. It was September of 2020. Shortly after that, the next month, we took it to City Council with this commission's comments. City Council directed us to proceed with facilities at 2 locations, Perry Park and this Pad 10 location. It took us about a year to figure out a design build contract that we could all live with. But in October of 2021, we signed a contract with Spawn Ranch for design build for $140,000. The estimate was about $30,000 that would be invested for the Perry Park site and about $110,000 invested here at Pad 10. The LA Kings had provided some funding through the Police Foundation that the council acknowledged at that point and said would be used and consumed in these 2 projects. And so that's what brings us here tonight. When we met with you in September of 2020, we heard by 6-1 vote a lot of support for locating a facility at this site. There were some concerns expressed too, which we took into account I had written at the time, maintaining flexibility of the site for multiple uses was important to this group. Replacement or some kind of seating in this area was important. Protection against errant skateboards, making better use of the back wall, and providing for a safety plan for the area. So those are the things we took to council, and they gave us direction to move forward. And the design, we've tried to respond to those concerns. Vince, of course, will go through the technical details of the design, but we did want to present this master plan to you. You'll notice that one of the things that isn't in the base plan, that is in the master plan, is a nice use of a quarter pipe at the back wall there. Wanted to respond to that. The railings we've talked about for protection of the pedestrian areas to stop skateboards from hitting people in the ankles or running all the way off into the ocean. We've looked at flat-topped type structures that could be used for platforms, either for seating or for a yoga instructor or something like that. The area to the east that sits over that rail, I think you call it a grinding rail, could easily be a platform, a stage platform or something could be set up over the top of that if we needed a bigger stage for some kind of an event. So we've tried to take in the considerations that were presented a year and a half ago from this group into the design, knowing that you guys were very interested in that. We've worked with fire departments to talk about safety, ingress and egress for emergency equipment and such. And Isaac King and I have had a number of conversations about their comfort with this location as a safety from a safety operational point of view. So we think we're ticking all the boxes here with this design, but maybe there's things we've overlooked. We're happy to hear that from you as well. The dining spaces that we showed in an earlier picture a year and a half ago, I think those tables were temporarily placed in this location, perhaps as a COVID outside dining option. As you've seen in the other photos tonight, there are just benches there now, which could also be placed outside of these rails for people to sit and observe the skating activity. Or when there's not skating, obviously sitting on the features here inside the fenced area is also a good option. So hopefully, with the exception of the municipal code work that we still need to do, we've checked all the boxes here for the concerns that we heard. And the operational hours, Antonio had that question earlier. The restrooms there are closed at 9:15 p.m. and open at 8 a.m. We use that as a starting point for our suggestion for operational hours. Of course, that could be changed. The other parks in the city are operation hours are defined in the municipal code. So our thought would be to just add this location in a similar fashion with the hours that were deemed most appropriate for the skating operation or the skating activity here. So well, with the exception of this next topic, which is really our next steps, which I don't know if you want me to get into right now or later, but assuming tonight, the short answer is assuming approvals tonight, we'll move on to the city council to get their sign off on what we want to do during this current phase, if we want to go with the base plan or an expanded plan. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty of design, getting building permits, getting the offsite manufacturing done and the installation done. And the coincidental project for the railings will be done in that time frame as well. So that's the end of my prepared comments, but happy to continue answering questions. Or I know Vince is probably eager to talk about the specifics of the design too. So I'm happy to hand it to him or continue with questions at your pleasure.
What do you think? We've got 3 hands up. You guys want to hear Vince's presentation or go into your questions at this point?
I'd like to ask my questions first.
Okay. I'll go in order of the hands I see. Commissioner Kilroy, yours was the first hand up that I saw.
Yeah, I just have a couple quick questions. The first question is, what's actually the funding source? The general fund, capital improvement, CIP projects?
This is mostly Quimby funds, Subdivision Park Trust, we call it. That is almost the entirety of it. I think there might be a little bit, well, I know there's the King's funding in there as well. there may be some CIP funds from the original project when we were funding the Dominguez Park that have carried over since then.
Okay, I was just curious. Have we reached out to the specifically, I mean, I know the agenda and everything's posted, but have we reached out to Kincaid's, the businesses along the boardwalk, and those specifically about the scope of this skateboard park?
The former director, Mr. Proud, he did hold a meeting with one of the business groups. Again, Lori, you may have to help me here with some of the detail, but my understanding was he met with some of the business owners. There was not a lot of participation, unfortunately, but the people that were there had similar concerns about pedestrian safety and access and that kind of thing, but no real different either ideas or objections to the project.
As soon as we sent the agenda out to the commission and mayor and council, we then sent the agenda to all of the tenants within the pier. So whether it's direct city tenants or tenants, Mr. Resnick's tenants, Mr. Kwan's tenants, they all receive the same information. And we're also given specific information on if they had any comments and how they could submit e-comments or be on the Zoom call. So that was, again, very recent. We did reach out to them.
Is there any opportunity to do a presentation at the Pier Association meeting?
We don't yet have in-person meetings, but I did spend time with the Redondo Pier Association board members, and that is Bob Resnick, representative of Mr. Kwan, Fisherman's Wharf, and also our marketing consultant who uses this area quite a bit for concerts and yoga and items like that. And so I don't know if they've submitted anything, but I did spend quite a bit of time with them on this particular item.
Yeah, I'd just like to make sure that the businesses aren't going to be surprised. I'd like to make sure we have their buy-in because there are going to be some impacts. And hopefully the impacts are positive. Hopefully it's bringing more people down there and it spurs more business for them. But it's always best to reach out. And the problem, of course, is they tend to ignore a lot of notices and stuff. So you almost have to spoon feed it or walk it right down in front of them. I just think it would be beneficial and good to make that extra effort to reach out so they know what's coming so that we're not hit after the fact when it's actually too late and the ship has sailed, pardon the pun, and they suddenly have objections. There were issues brought up with regards to how people are going to get there, hours of operation, noise, all those things can certainly impact the businesses along the boardwalk, Kincaid's, and I just like to make sure they know exactly what the scope of the project is before we start jackhammering and pouring concrete.
Point well taken. We will internally we'll discuss maybe hosting a Zoom for them that we can walk them through the process and the renderings. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That's it.
Roger, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Commissioner Kilroy. Yeah, there was, when we discussed this last time in September of 2020, we had also asked, Spawn Ranch to potentially do a little bit of outreach and talk to the nearby pier people. And, he hoped at the time that, I think it was the local resident, that representative we had here, he was hoping we could solve these problems. And, I hope we can solve these problems by putting a little fork off the bike path to get here. So, instead of just saying, don't ride your skateboards here and there, you give people a good path to get here and hopefully they'll take advantage of it. Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chair. You asked most of my questions, so I'll make this short. How many skateboarders do we think this area will accommodate?
Yeah, I can take that one. This is Vince with Spawn Ranch. So obviously it will vary between, like a Tuesday morning session versus your peak hours, which I think would be, Saturday and Sunday afternoons.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll start with peak hours. During peak hours, I think this facility could easily accommodate roughly 40 riders at one time.
Wow.
Beyond 40, it could still function. You just have to wait your turn a little bit longer and it'll start to feel more cramped and crowded. But for large events, and I imagine there'll be, some larger events organized here from time to time. For larger events, you could have, hundreds of people, using the space at a time for competitions and demonstrations and things like that. During non-peak hours, like a Tuesday morning, like I said, I think, you would have, a handful of people up to like 10 people or so. And at those times, that's when I would skate because I'm older now and I don't like dealing with all the little young kids running around. So I would skate in the morning when there would be just a handful of people using the facility.
Yeah, I was more interested in what do you think the max capacity is before you start getting people pushing and shoving and
Right.
fighting?
Yeah. Then I would say that kind of 40 user mark is a good threshold. And then from there, it just exponentially feels more and more crowded.
Are we going to have any, I know this is probably premature, are we going to have any age restrictions? Like I'm using the dog park as an example. We have people come in with infants in mommy packs. And dogs hitting them and running and then they put little toddlers down and the dogs are running over them. Are we going to have a restriction on, little kids under a certain age can't be there unless their parents are accompanying them?
In the municipal code, we have some language about kids under a certain age need to be accompanied. Maybe 12, maybe it's 14. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember reading that at some point.
Okay. That's plenty old. I was thinking like little 4 and 5-year-olds on their first skateboard. And I'm assuming that we'll have safety requirements, helmets for kids under 18.
And again, I'm going to go back to a fuzzy memory on the code, but I think I recall that helmets were required without an age limit, which is why it seemed to be even beyond what bike helmet laws are.
Okay, good. And my last question is, have we figured out what a yearly maintenance cost is going to apply here?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Vince will have some response to that as well. We've tried to target materials that are pretty hardened as far as you can be in this close to the water, but with, steel and concrete. I anticipate, maintaining the artwork, if it ends up looking like this, will be probably something we do even more frequently than some of the other maintenance there. But the railings, we'll have to keep up on those. We don't have an estimate yet for that.
Okay.
We will roll that into, one of our operational budgets. Either, I'm not sure if it'd be parks or harbor here. I won't speak for those departments.
Will that come out of Tidelands?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that question in terms,
because we're already operating at a shoestring.
Yeah, absolutely understood. I'm since Cameron's not here, we'll let community services handle that. How about that answer?
Okay, sounds good to me.
I don't know if that's right. Public Works will be, obviously, as they continue to maintain other facilities down here at the pier, will be the eyes and hands on this in terms of maintenance. But all the funding sources, Lori, maybe you can help me about what if we have similar facilities like this and how they're handled.
It would most likely be added to the works budget.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
And if I could just interject real quick on the question about age, I think the age requirement is 14, and anybody using the facility would have to have helmets and pads. And that's in the municipal code.
Thanks. Okay.
Also just a quick note, parcel 10 falls within the uplands. Read to our map.
Okay, thanks a lot. And finally, Commissioner Light, thanks for your patience.
Oh, sure. No problems. Thank you. First off, I think, Lori, what you just said confirmed my one question. I found a tentative or a draft that went to the Coastal Commission of what's in the retained jurisdiction, and this was not in the area that the Coastal Commission retained jurisdiction, so it was under city approval authority. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then, we have to make a finding that this complies with the LCP, and the ordinance that I found that says no skateboarding on the basically anywhere on the pier, that is not part of the LCP.
That is not part of the LCP. I'd have to go back and take a look at where that is. It's not part of the implementation ordinance either. If you had to change any of those, it would have to go to Coastal Commission for certification. But because it falls outside of that,
right,
it wouldn't have to.
Okay, yeah, that was my read. I didn't think it was in the implementing ordinance or in the LCP itself. So we can do it in parallel and not have to. Yeah, wait, it doesn't prohibit us from making finding tonight.
That's correct. And if you wanted to, Commissioner Knight, you could always add in the recitals that you endorse making that change in the municipal code for this specific facility.
That will be one of my, of course, awaiting public comment on it, but that's one of the things I do want to do. Let's see, we covered the railing material. The hours of operation, I actually think, just saying 9:15 personally, and this is open for other commissioners, but I just think that blanket is a little too cut and dry. There's no lights on this facility, not sufficient lighting to adequately, I wouldn't say adequately skate once the sun sets. So I would actually prefer this be, until sunset, just so somebody's not trying something stupid like I probably would have done as a kid, and you lose 3D depth perception when it's dark. So that would be my recommendation to the commission, that we have this tied to sunset, not to when the bathrooms are closed, because that during like now it's dark at 9:15. So the graphics, we have to make a finding that it's consistent. So, but we're not approving graphics. So is that so we're saying there's no graphics in this, and therefore we don't have to make a finding of consistency from that perspective.
I have a version without the public art illustration. And yeah, to Andy's point, this is just a very conceptual illustration to show, here's what the space could look like with some public art added to it, which I think would be a great idea. But I'm not an artist myself, and I would recommend the city hires an artist through their typical channels.
Yeah. So Vince, I understand that. I'm asking kind of a technicality, since this is public hearing, and we are making findings. So we're not saying, right now we're approving it with no graphics so that we don't have to make a finding that it's nautical themed, right?
That's correct. But what I would recommend is that because in the Harbor Civic Center specific plan, it does call out that any design elements be nautical themed, that we make sure that some type of that the nautical theme is somehow incorporated into the art pieces, the artwork.
But since we're not approving artwork, I don't think we should burden this, because first we can bring the artwork back later.
Yes, but the artwork would not be under the purview of the Harbor Commission. It's under a different commission.
Well, I disagree with that. Since it's part of the LCP, I would think you'd have to go through both commissions in that case. If they approve a non-nautical theme, we're out of compliance with our LCP, and LCP compliance is our job.
Right. So we would, that could also be left to be an administrative decision where we would not approve, or staff would give the direction to for the people that are bidding on the art project that they have to incorporate some type of nautical theme to it.
So again, I don't think it should be a part of the CUP because Spawn Ranch couldn't comply or not comply with it.
Okay, that's fine. That's correct. You're right.
Yeah.
Just to add, and I don't mean to, this is out over my skis, which is my current Olympic favorite expression these days. There are elements of this project that are not being installed by Spawn Ranch, like the railings and like the art. So to the degree that it helps facilitate the artwork in the future, we would love for the commission to consider that. However, to your point, if the specific art aesthetic is something that this group needs to see, rather than something represented by the graphics shown here, in terms of surface graphics, not 3D art, then that's fine. We can move away from including that in your findings.
Well, thank you for that, Andy. I just want to make one other point. On the railings themselves, they do incorporate some decorative elements. And so that could be the finding itself, as long as those decorative elements are carried through with the new railings that are installed.
So are you recommending that we have a CUP element that says specifically any artwork will be nautically themed?
Well, you have to incorporate some, that has to be a finding for the Harbor Commission design review.
That's where I'm stuck.
Yeah, so it doesn't show it in this graphic, but as far as like the railings go, but the idea is that the railings would all be consistent in design and carry through those same design elements that are already at the pier.
So would that be part of the CUP?
Yeah, that would be part of the Harbor Commission design review findings, yes.
So that's two different things. There's findings and there's what is documented in the CUP.
It's in the resolution. It's in the findings for.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying, we're trying to make findings and there's nothing we can see to find, and some of it we're saying is not the final design. So it's hard for me to make a finding on something that's not presented or isn't part of the CUP.
It could be brought back to the commission if you would like.
Okay. I'm a little concerned with parking e-bikes away from the facility. I know we don't want people riding bike here, but there have been, if you follow some of the Facebook sites of local concerns, there have been a lot of e-bike thefts and regular bike thefts. So I think that would be a deterrent to make them park somewhere, especially in the parking garage where somebody could make off with them without anybody seeing it. And it's not too hard to cut the cables. I do agree this design allows for a lot of reuse. I think you have actually some great platform space for, if you have somebody conducting yoga or Tai Chi or any of those kind of things, they can be up higher than the crowd. And there's plenty of space for people to spread out. So I like that. I'm actually glad it's not removable because I thought that would be a logistic nightmare and somewhat it would drive the cost up to have to move a lot of these elements. So I'm glad with that. I heard the process, but what's the originally we were told, this would be in by the start of summer. Are we still targeting that, or do we break that window?
That's going to be a difficult schedule to keep at this point. We had hoped to move these proceedings forward a little sooner than we were able to. So we're not sure we're going to make this installation by summer. And Vince, I know you're counting days as well. So stop here, a stop at the city council, and then presumably next month, and then Vince, you're off to the races. What kind of time frame, Vince, do you need from for instance, if we did the base design and approved it pretty much as is here, what's your time frame for installation?
Yeah, any kind of permitting, I think, is still somewhat of a question mark that we'd need to work through. But assuming we're permitted, approved, good to go, we'd probably need about, I would say about 4 weeks of prep time offsite where we're fabricating all of the steel and any pre-made forms and things like that we can do offsite to speed things up in the field. So probably 4 weeks of offsite prep, and then once we get on site with the base design, we'd be looking at no more than 4 weeks. So once we get thumbs up, probably about 2 weeks, or sorry, 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, that's pushing up against the Memorial Day weekend that we were shooting for. We could either continue and get it done at the beginning of the summer, or we could just pause and come back after the summer rush, depending on what the council would like us to do. So that's, yeah, everything's gonna have to go exactly right, I think, to hit that Memorial Day weekend timeframe we were shooting for before.
Okay, that's all my questions. I'd like to hear the, Vince's briefing, and then hear public comments before I make any motions, or anybody else makes motions.
Yep,
So-
I can take things over. I think someone else is still sharing, says I can't start until.
Yeah, that's me, and I noticed one more hand up, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't.
Oh, yep, my bad.
Want to stay here or move to the next set of slides.
Chair Carlson, it's Commissioner Kuzan who has her hand up.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Go ahead, Commissioner Grzan.
Thanks. So a few things. I agree with Commissioner Light on the hours, and typically they're dawn to dusk hours. I guess in this case, as early as not until 8 for the bathroom. So that makes a lot of sense. And then going to dusk unless we're installing some special lights for safety here. There was mention last year when this came to the commission before I was here about electrical, and I didn't see anything about outlets or anything, and I assume anything with noise or boom boxes falls right into some existing city codes. The question I had on the maintenance, just wondering about how often we'd have to keep the paint fresh. So that'll be a question for the art, whoever does the art installation. And I'm also just wondering if Spawn Ranch will serve like as an advisor if they have insight on what works well or what doesn't work well on art on these features for durability.
Yeah, absolutely. We would be happy to do that.
Great. On the bike racks, I don't know, do you have a picture, maybe a couple slides up that shows from the front? Yeah, that one right there. So in the top left there's a few parking spaces there in front of Kincaid's. I can't think right now of how this ease of access or best access from bike, but if you turn those parking spots over to bike racks and benches, that might be nice for, folks using this facility to keep a closer eye on their bikes, and then also would serve as kind of a viewing area for people maybe not participating at the moment, but watching their friends participate.
Yeah, if I can interrupt, the middle deck, I believe, is the same level as the bike path. And so you'd have pretty easy access there off the bike path. The upper deck is what I was talking about before, which would be great for a view, but it's hard to get there on a skateboard or with a heavy e-bike.
That's if you're coming down from Torrance Boulevard. I think you land on that deck, right?
You could, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you go up a flight of stairs. But if you're coming from the
Like-
upper deck above where the bike path is now, the upper deck above, where the
Yeah.
dining decks are, you're on the middle layer.
Probably not as cool
and,
to hang out, but easier access. Yeah.
and maybe you can see your bike pretty well there from the pad. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, it's okay. Those are good points. You said that there would be seating maintained, but the picture didn't show it. Is it envisioned just to be around the perimeter of the fence, looking in like it is now?
Yeah, our thought was that these benches that you see here that are existing now could just be relocated around the perimeter as needed. There's also a little platform right up here. I don't know if you can see my cursor on your screens. Kind of half between the top deck of parking in front of Kincaid's and the middle deck of parking. There's a little, I think there's actually a picnic bench out there now, but that's a nice viewpoint as well for people wanting to watching from kind of a bird's eye view. Bench could be placed there. Lori, I'm not sure if you give a lot of direction to Public Works or who decides where these benches go, but I know they change occasionally.
It just depends on if there are any activities at any given time that they need to be removed. But we do walks with Public Works all the time and can easily make decisions on where to relocate those.
Okay, great. I had a question about the multi-use. I think that's great that we can maintain that. I don't understand how that would be done. Is it envisioned that it would be done like at a park where you're going to reserve certain picnic tables or facilities to have a yoga class or skate park clinic or some small concert event?
Commissioner Kazan, most of the events that take place at Parcel 10 are city sponsored or sponsored by the Redondo Pier Association. So it's not open to outside groups to utilize. So we foresee still having many of the annual events that are held here, movie nights during the summer. The summer concerts some of the summer concerts are held at Parcel 10. So we do believe that a lot of the activities will continue, but again, they are city sponsored. I think we mentioned sometimes the police department have skate events or other events. So
yeah, and the yoga was city sponsored through Beach Cities or something, right?
Through Cancer Community, a tenant of ours.
Okay, so city would just manage all that and post signs that it's different use that day.
We'll have to figure out a system to tell people in advance.
Right.
Certain events taking place here.
Right. Okay. I liked the idea of someone mentioned platforms over the rails for alternate events, either for making the space more usable or safer. Are there like storage facilities for some cover that would go over a rail, like adjacent to the bathrooms or something? Or that's just something the city would bring for those events, I guess?
Yeah, the city has a maintenance storage area, just the parking structure. And I believe actually it's hard. There's a couple of big doors right back all where we have storage as well.
Okay, that's what I thought. Cool. And I assume the platforms that you talked about being dual use, like for these purposes, are sized. The dimensions weren't specifically given on the slides, but they're large enough for a yoga mat or a few people to stand and not fall off to strum an acoustic guitar or talk or whatever with a microphone. They're sized appropriately for that.
Yeah, Vince has some more detail on his slides that give some dimensions, so that might answer your question when we get to those particular set of slides.
Okay. I think the railing is fine fitting in. I just wondered about the timeline, about if the harbor amenities plan was going to have any input on anything that we might want to consider, but after having seen this, I understand how it ties into the rest of the pier that is not part of the amenities plan per se. I like the wood element versus just all metal, a little bit softer visually. If you could go to the slide that just one of the slides that shows the park itself. This is just a couple design questions. The stairs that come, you can't really see it from that one, but the stairs that come in at the back there, I just wonder when you actually implement that, if it might be instead of a sharp corner there, a curved area. So, because it looks like there's like a dead zone in the space there behind that feature.
I'm sorry, having a hard time understanding where you mean.
Yeah, if you page down, you have another view of your, I guess it's in the,
Yeah, I'd be happy to stop and let Vince put his slides up if that would help.
yeah, it's on the other agenda packet.
I'll stop, Vince, and then you can throw yours in.
Yes.
And maybe it's wide, I just don't have a sense of scale here, but.
Yep. Okay.
So that,
Can you go?
on the far right, that sharp corner from the stairs going down.
Yeah.
I don't know what that distance is to the tan structure there, but I just wondered if that stair area might be curved going down so that it's not a pinch point and, you could ride your skateboard through there and not be kind of a dead
Right.
cut off area.
Yeah. I don't see why not. I think the spacing is okay now.
Okay.
Just eyeballing it, I think we have about 6 feet of space. So
Okay.
basically between the edge of the handicap ramp wall and then this element right here. Yeah, it looks a little tight in this image, but
Yeah.
it's about 6 feet. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Perfect. And then the last question, in the cost element, in the cost summary you had, it mentions that inspections are not covered. What kind of inspections are required? Are these just the normal city inspections, or is there something unique to a skate park?
No, that's just a boilerplate kind of term and condition in our cost estimates. And what that would typically include in reference to this would be concrete testing. So some municipalities elect to have the concrete tested. So while we're out there pouring concrete, they will hire an agency that specializes in testing concrete, take a sample of that concrete, do cylinder breaks, and confirm it meets the PSI strength thresholds that we've outlined, in this case, 4,000 PSI strength. So we're happy to comply with that testing, but it's a conflict of interest if I'm hiring the testing agency to test my concrete. So we typically put that as an exclusion to be done by others.
Okay.
That's a piece that the city will pick up as part of our normal construction process, as well as we'll need a building permit for some of these structures. So our in-house building inspectors will be on site as well for appropriate inspections per the permit. But no fee for that. It's a city project, so we don't charge, obviously, our consultant a fee to do that, because they would just bill it back to us.
Sure. Well, I really like the design and the added amenity that we're putting in here. The only other thing I could think of that would be cool, but not really feasible, probably, is if the fences could move aside or fold flaps on one another in sections, so that when you do other uses of the area, you might open it up more. Not sure how you'd exactly implement that, but just a wish list. Looks good. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Commissioner Kazan. Commissioner Bauer, you are up, sir. And I just want to say, I know you voted, you were the dissenting vote last time, and I hope we can address your concerns. That dissenting vote, carried a lot of weight, but I'm not sure it fixed the problems, and I hope we can actually, fix the problems and fix your concerns.
Well, thank you for that, Chair Carlson. Yes, my I have a couple concerns. The number one thing is currently today on the pier, we have trouble enforcing, for instance, bike riders just biking where they shouldn't bike. And right now, without a way to get to this, there's going to be people who are going to take their boards and ride to this, of course. I like the idea of even providing a way that you could ride to this somehow and make that legal to just get around that. My other question would be a question for Vince. Vince, when you have a skateboard park like this that's open and open at night, how often would somebody still go down there and then create noise and that would be irritating to the residents?
Yeah, great question. If it's not lit, then really no one who is actually trying to skateboard would go down there to skateboard because you're very easily going to get hurt. And as much as we have a daredevil reputation, we don't like getting hurt just for the fun of it. So I don't know exactly I don't recall exactly what it looks like at night there, whether it's lit or partially lit or not lit at all. But assuming it's not lit, then I don't really see anyone who's actually trying to skateboard using this facility. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't going to be, knucklehead teenagers who go down here to mess around. There's no way of preventing a teenager from being a teenager. In terms of actual skateboarders, I hope that answers your question.
It does. And then just a question from Lori of how, if we did need to install a gate there, would that be okay as far as somebody making sure that gate gets shut at sunset? By the way, I love the idea of it's got to shut when the sun goes down. Of course, I think that's appropriate.
You're speaking of installation of a gate at the end of the bollards that you see against the wall?
Yeah.
Referring to? I think, are there, Andy, and there are a couple of open areas, and right, the ramp is open. There's an opening there. So there would have to be a couple of gates.
A couple of gates, yeah.
Three gates. Andy certainly we could do that. I think we just need to work closely with engineering on something like that.
Yeah, it's a little complex to try and put a gate at each of these openings. And there's some trade-offs. As much as you keep people out, like they just hop over the rail. We're trying to keep enough of an open concept that it allowed for some free flow and not having to navigate a gate with, during the regular use hours as well. So there's trade-offs. We can go either way. It's a city project. The question came up too about gates the rails be removed, and that's something we could consider as well for non-skateboarding times. Again, adds a degree of complication and some cost. But that's what we're talking about. So.
But it would be interesting. And also, I know it came up, but getting more input, making sure all the businesses are aware of this and how they feel about it. At the initial meeting, we had some business concern. And as long as everybody's okay with that, if we could get that somehow, that would make me feel more comfortable with this. But yes. All right. Thank you so much for your time. And I appreciate the design, certainly.
Okay. Thanks a lot. That's all the hands I see, unless we've got hands going up a second time. Commissioner Light, is your hand up again? Or
no, I just had a real quick one. I think the gates would be costly, especially trying to get something that would still enable you to go to the bathroom till 9:15 in the evening, and it wouldn't stop anybody who was going to violate the rule that said don't go after dusk anyway, because you just hop over the fence. And my personal feel is, the businesses, this has been out there since 2020. It was in the paper this past week. And, I certainly don't want to continue to delay this. So my hope is that, the commission moves forward with this tonight, but I know, we've got other debate to go, but I'm certainly, we've been farting around with this for a long time. And I know the timeline you said was 5 years. but it's actually, kids have been asking for this for over a decade, not necessarily at this location, but a skate park in Redondo. So
Sure.
I think this put it off for another month, which delays everything. Anyway, that's all I had. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think that's covered all the hands. So do we still have a presentation remaining from Vince?
I can run through it very, very quickly.
Thanks a lot.
Already almost 8. I have 3 versions of the design. The first version is really just to illustrate what public art could look like. When I first visited the space, I said, wow, this is an amazing space. What a location. Has so much potential. So I would love to collaborate with the city and a local artist to add art to this space. And I didn't show it here because it was going to get too overwhelming, but this giant wall right here that slopes down, that's a great canvas for a mural. That's just a blank wall right now. That's an amazing canvas for art that could come down and around the wall and then continue to kind of spread throughout the space. So I think we've pretty much covered that. So next I'll show you what the concept looks like without the art. So it's getting less and less cool, but still very cool. Starting kind of at the edge and zooming in. So we have an extension of the railing, which we're showing here, and then also over here, which would be the east and the south. And then the concept is pretty straightforward. So we've got a ramp or an embankment on each end. We've got this central obstacle here, which, as discussed, is going to function really well in a multi-use sense. So these elevated steps or pads here kind of create this elevated stage that someone can use for a performance or to instruct a yoga class. So very multi-use and very multifunctional in that sense. This is the center obstacle here. It's a combination of ramps and steps and edges and things like that. Over here up against this wall, we have this curved ramp that basically butts right up against the wall, the large sloping wall. And then on the kind of the flat areas, we have just a handful of, beginner level features and just routing out the facility. And one thing I will mention in kind of a high level, big picture sense, you can see we're not overcrowding the space with too much. This is going to be a very well-used facility. Redondo doesn't have any skate parks, and there's a lot of skateboarders in Redondo, so this will be very well used. So you don't want to overcrowd it with too many features and make it cramped and have kind of that crash up derby effect. Next, open space is good for beginners, obviously. Beginners need open space where they can kind of just practice riding on flat concrete versus having to immediately hop up onto an obstacle. And then lastly, open space is good, as discussed, so that other events can occur here from time to time, whether it's a concert, a yoga class, or whatever. So that is kind of the master plan concept without the art. And then lastly, this is kind of the base design. So there's some unique complexities to the site, which make it somewhat expensive to build on. And then obviously, as I'm sure you guys know, inflation has hit the construction industry very hard. So material prices are just through the roof right now. So $110,000 unfortunately just doesn't stretch as far as it used to, especially not with a complex site like this where concrete trucks and our concrete pumps have to go through a little bit of extra effort to access the site. So this is the base concept. It's a version of the master plan concept, just with certain obstacles kind of simplified. So the ramps in the end are the same. The central obstacle is simplified and kind of pared down a bit. We lose the curved ramp that butts up against the wall, and then we lose a couple of the kind of at-grade elements on the flat. But again, to Andy's point, anything's better than nothing. So this would still be a very well-used and functional facility, and we could always add on at a later date. That is the base concept, and that's pretty much it. I think, we answered, pretty much all your questions already. Let me know if there's anything else.
Vince, I'll ask you a couple of questions. Stop there. This is a good one for me to ask my questions on. If you're going around that half pipe and you're going around to the right, do you run into the ramp? Or is the ramp far enough away? Not that ramp, sorry, the handicap access ramp.
Oh, the handicap ramp. Yes. No, that was taken into consideration that folks may be skateboarding down that ramp or walking down that ramp. And what we try to do at all kind of access or ingress egress areas is that's a no feature zone where we have kind of this radius that goes out from the access points where we don't want any features because we want people to kind of enter the space safely without feeling like I'm entering right where there's a bunch of activity happening. So I was very thoughtful with the spacing in this area over here. So I think we're good from that perspective.
Okay. Do you need anything to protect the rail on the handicap ramp or the cement on that handicap ramp?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
And my last question on design is you have an opening in the lower left corner that's not exactly shown where a board could go into the pedestrian path or into the water.
Yeah, here.
Do you need a baffle down there or some of that handicap ramp pebbled material or something like that?
Yeah, the truncated domes. Yeah. We could place truncated domes at strategic locations. Obviously, they need to enter somewhere. We can't have it fully fenced off. So we try to balance, an opening that felt comfortable and inviting, but not too wide to where, skateboards are going to shoot out. So I think we struck that balance pretty well. But yeah, there's other measures we could look at, maybe as part of the railing project to ensure that, we're as cautious as possible there.
Yeah, you're the expert. You might want another entry on the other side. I don't know, up to you.
Yeah.
The last question I have, and maybe this is a question for Public Works as well. Is it important to do the artwork as you're laying this stuff in? Is there a concrete treatment you want to do while you're applying the concrete, or can you add the artwork later successfully, do you think?
Yeah, they're completely irrelevant to each other.
Great. Okay.
So no, we don't need to do anything special on our end. Let's say we do. Where is it? Let's say we do this. There's nothing that we would do that's dependent on whether or not the art's going to happen at a later date. It's not going to change anything other than obviously we have some, even if we don't do the art, the paint, we are going to have some colors in our base design. So it would be good to know, just a general aesthetic. But other than that, no, there's nothing special we have to do.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you didn't have to, dye that marble blue while you were pouring it or something like that. That's all my questions. Commissioner Walters, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was just curious what the lifetime expectancy is of this type of park based on the materials that you used and your experience. I mean, is this something we're going to have to maintain every year and come back and have to redo in 5 years or something like this? Just kind of give me some feel for how long this park will last and what kind of maintenance we'll have to use.
Yeah, so the primary maintenance aspects of this facility are not even skate park specific. We have concrete as our primary material, which is the most durable material of any material you can use. And then all of the concrete edges, as you can see, are wrapped with steel. So anywhere where a skateboarder would grind or slide, that's going to be wrapped with steel edge protection to make sure the concrete doesn't chip and break as they're grinding and sliding on it. So your primary maintenance requirements are going to be just kind of trash and debris removal. Obviously, it's going to be a well-used facility, and not every kid is polite with throwing their soda away and throwing their trash away. So that's going to be your primary maintenance. It's just general, just trash and debris removal. If there's any kind of graffiti that pops up, graffiti removal. You may want to, just pressure wash the facility, once every 6 months or so, just to kind of, give it a clean look. But beyond that, concrete skate parks with, thorough steel edge protection last for decades upon decades. So 30 years before you would have to do any kind of major renovation or maintenance.
So you're familiar with the skate park in Hermosa, right? The concrete one there. So when was that constructed?
That's a good question. Probably early 2000s, I'd have to look it up, but like a 2002-ish. So that's been there for 20 years. Yeah.
Okay. That's in pretty good shape. So the construction of that park is similar to this?
Yeah, and well, if not, this one would be better. You know, we've made advances in construction methodologies and techniques over the past 20 years. Our industry as a whole is still somewhat new, right? And the skate park industry has only been around for 30 years. So there's been a lot of evolution and development over the years.
And I was just curious in terms of like this type of park, what age range would you expect here? Is it pretty wide? Very. Like how advanced is this park? I say, would the advanced skateboarder want to come and use this, or is this really more for beginners?
Yeah, I think it will speak to the full spectrum of skill levels. I wouldn't say it's an advanced level facility. If I had to just give it one singular label, I would give it somewhere between beginner and intermediate. But that's not to say an advanced skateboarder wouldn't have fun here. The obstacles aren't huge. Nothing is large in height or too advanced. And an advanced skateboarder would just do more technical tricks. So instead of just like big tricks, they do more technical or difficult tricks on these smaller obstacles. So the full spectrum of users are going to love this.
Well, I know it can be intimidating for beginning skaters. I took my son to the Hermosa Park when he was young. Yeah. And I was a skateboarder as a kid too.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of big kids in there, and they're really good. You don't want to go in there, you know. And, you know, and so you know, at Hermosa they have a nice little observation area for the parents. And you sit there, and the kids, you know, the beginners can kind of do their thing, and they kind of stay out of the way of like the better kids and the bigger kids. And so, is there room here as well for parents to sit and watch? Because I would like it to be a kind of a family friendly type of park where you can bring your 8-year-old kid or 9-year-old kid to be able to skate around and, you know, feel safe and then be able to watch, you know, for 20 minutes, half hour, whatever it is. Of course, the diehard skateboarders are going to come down here without their parents, right? They're going to spend hours there. But I'm sure you designed this for that type of skateboarder. But I'm thinking it more from a family's perspective, young kids who want to maybe try to skateboard, you know, who want to be introduced to the sport.
Yeah, absolutely. All great points. And that goes back to my point about there being open space. As you can see, there's a fair bit of open space. We didn't cram it with too many obstacles. And that's going to work really well for beginner riders who are just trying to get the hang of riding on a skateboard and don't want to be, you know, too intimidated. So I think we're covered there. And then in terms of spectators, obviously, this is great for spectators all the way around. You can hang out anywhere up on the parking deck or on, you know, as the railing comes down. And then obviously, if you've been to Venice Beach, you see that people basically lean on that railing that wraps around the skate park and just watch. So this railing here, it's primarily just to keep skateboards from shooting out, but you can also lean on it and watch the activity. And then lastly, I think Andy spoke to this. There are a number of picnic tables and benches and whatnot left over in that kind of general area that could be moved over to here and kind of repositioned around the perimeter. So folks, if they don't want to lean on the railing, they can sit and watch as well.
Yeah, and just in your experience, what are the types of injuries do you expect from I remember as a kid, there was quite a few, but, you know, but is this, you know, something that we need to, I don't know, have guards or have, you know, have monitored? You know, lots of the kids go down there without, you know, supervision, you know, so.
Right. Yeah, no, the ramps are fairly subtle in height. So this ramp here is 3 feet tall. The center ramp is 1.5 feet tall. So the ramps are ranging from 1.5 feet to 3. The one in the corner is a little bit taller. That one's 6, but for the most part, these are beginner to intermediate level ramps. So you don't have any kind of terrain that would, you know, create an opportunity for a big, massive concussion or something like that, like you would in like a 12-foot deep pool or bowl. So the most common injuries are just going to be, you know, sprained wrists, sprained ankles, things like that.
Right. I think someone mentioned earlier about safety equipment. Is that something that's we're going to put signs up or require, you know, helmets and whatnot? Or is that, I think someone mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I'll let Andy speak to that one. But yeah, I imagine there would be some signage posted.
Yeah, that's right. The municipal code has the language already, and we will put up the various warning signs to balance between good warning and not trying to blight the place out with signage. So,
No, makes sense. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Light, your hand is up again, sir.
Sorry, I was just, I'd like to go after the public comment.
Okay. I
Done.
think,
So, yeah.
thanks. I think then we are up to public comment.
Elizabeth, do we have? Go ahead.
We do have one person that's specifically registered to speak on this item. It's Susie Wolke. So Susie, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I have a few concerns. I live in the village condos. We have 5 big complexes here, probably about 1,500 units. And although we did a sound test, Todd Lowenstein and a couple of the guys that were promoting the park, it wasn't really much of a sound test, but I think that there was another additional sound test that I didn't know about. I wasn't able to attend that because I didn't see any signs posted necessarily like this particular meeting. So I'm concerned. We have $1 million properties here. We don't want to hear about the cracking sounds of the skateboards. It's going to be noisy. And I'm shocked that it's going to be capacity 40 people at a time. I'm wondering at some point, and I don't think it's going to be that big, but at some point, if it's not successful and maybe some of the monies is going to come from grants, that was discussed at one point. If they are going to take out this park altogether at some point, if they find that it's not successful, and how long that they would wait before they remove this park. I think that the barriers are a concern. I was told that there might be some sort of plastic shield to absorb the sound a little better. And my last point is that I've spoken to some of the kids that skateboard right in front of my place here. And they also skateboard over at Elks on the back stairs. They also skateboard. Well, there's a bunch of skateboarders that hang out on the rooftop of Polly's, which the police are aware of. But those kids, I've spoken to some of them. They said that they are not interested in this park. So what are you going to do to draw in these kids? Because that's why this was built for the skateboarders. The people said they have no place to go. They said they're not interested in this park. It's not challenging enough. So the noise is the number one concern. And that's pretty much my main point.
And then Mark Hansen is on the line, but I don't see his hand raised. But Mark, would you like to speak on this item?
No, nothing on this item. Thank you.
Okay. And then we do have one e-comment that I'll go ahead and read into the record. The comment is from Amy Hackman. I am extremely opposed to an exemption declaration and conditional use permit for a skateboard park on the International Boardwalk on Pad 10. This is the wrong location for a skateboard park. The boardwalk and harbor are adjacent to a densely populated residential area, and the noise from the skateboards would greatly disturb the peaceful and quiet enjoyment all of the residents are all entitled to by law. If any of you have been to a facility like this, you'll understand the loud noise the skateboards make. 5 large condominium and rental unit complexes with approximately 1,500 residents are directly above and adjacent to the International Boardwalk and Pier. All of these residents would be directly affected by the noise, which would echo off of the cement walls and into their windows, decks, pool areas, etc. The entire reason for living in this area is to peacefully enjoy this quiet seaside area. The local restaurants, bars, and shops along the boardwalk would also be impacted by the noise. Their patrons trying to enjoy a calm meal or drink by the water would be driven away because it would be noisy and there would be skateboarders riding past everyone on the walkways. These poor businesses are trying to finally make a living after the COVID shutdowns, and this would hurt them. The addition of a skateboard park to the city is a fine idea, but not in this inappropriate location. Please consider the rights of the large number of local residents and the small businesses and don't allow this. And that concludes e-comments. And there are no emails either.
Okay. Thanks a lot for the comments. Yeah, I had been thinking about the noise coming off that back wall, and I was hoping that the something like a half pipe would really break that noise up, and if we do still end up with a big flat wall there, other sound treatments may help. So I know of that one noise study. I don't know of others. I'd be interested to see that if anybody here has it. But hopefully we can mitigate sound coming off that wall if it proves to be a problem in the future, especially if we do shorten the hours and have this end at sunset. So let's see, going back to the commission, Commissioner Light, I think you had your hand up again.
So appreciate the presentation both by staff and by Vince. I like the design. I think it's a good mix. I'll tell you the only skateboard park I had access to as a kid was much more intimidating than this. So you had to the least you had to drop into was a 10-foot deep bowl, and everything was progressively tougher after that. So I think this does accommodate that beginner to intermediate group from my observations at Hermosa and some of the other skates. I think, certainly you can get jerks, but I think most of the skaters are there as a community and treat each other. They're helpful to one another. I've seen them help little kids learn how to do new moves and stuff like that. So I'm hopeful that would be what would occur here. I do think the lower bar does, my main concern was, I don't think you're going to shoot the boards off, 5 feet off the ground. I think it's going to be a rolling hazard. I think that lower bar captures them. So I'm pretty satisfied with the design. I would hope that the city would find a way to fund the master plan, not the lower plan, and would be willing to look at ways to help fundraise as a community if the city doesn't think it can fund that, because I think that is a feature that is I think critical to making this a really good skate park. So with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion, and then folks can jump on top of it or present a substitute motion. First, I'd like to modify the CUP for closure at sunset. Second, I would approve the resolution with that CUP change and no graphics being approved, and that the railing is to mirror the railing that's done on the rest of the pier. And I think that gets us around the design requirement in the LCP. I would further recommend that city council direct staff to change the ordinance that prohibits skateboarding in the pier, and recommend that they fund find funding for the full master plan. So that's my motion on this effort.
Okay, I see a number. Okay, thank you. And I believe at this point we can go into discussion on the motion. I see a number of hands up, and I want to address those, but make sure I'm doing it the right way. So I believe we now have discussion before we vote on the motion.
Yes, Chair, if we could just make a motion to close the public hearing.
Yes, can we have that motion from someone?
So moved.
Second. A second? Okay, thanks. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you. Thanks for cleaning that up. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, but we had a lot of hands up in addition, so I'll address those hands as part of discussion of the motion, hopefully. If everyone's amenable to that. Commissioner Kazan.
It was just a comment to consider, a recommendation to the council to consider some sort of contingency fund if noise is a problem. I don't know that we have a straight answer of what we would do, so maybe that's difficult, but recognizing that could be an issue.
Yeah, I think given our current noise ordinances, the council would have to do something. I'm curious to see what additional noise. Yeah. And I'm also curious to see what if any secondary noise tests were done. I'm also somewhat hopeful that moving skating from the upper deck where it is now a little further away to this area would help manage the noise. Because right now where skateboarding is occurring is a lot closer to the houses.
Yeah, it might just echo back onto the International Boardwalk.
But I think I'm speaking out of order, so I'm going to go back to hands. Commissioner Callahan, go ahead.
I too am very concerned about the noise level. I have a half pipe in the backyard, not directly behind me, but over one. And for 2 hours a day, every day, we are held hostage by the horrible racket. And we have an ivy wall to try and buffer the noise. I got to tell you, it's 1 or 2 kids every day. And I feel like I am being tortured. So I think that before this goes forward, we should have a better sound test. At the very least, some relief on the back walls to absorb some of the noise. But concrete and those wheels clacking all day and all night would drive me up a wall. It's my personal opinion. Thank you.
Thanks. Commissioner Kilroy.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, some general things. This pad has been underutilized for probably 30 years. And I don't think that's any exaggeration at all. When you remember the Octagon building that used to be there, and the only sound coming out of it was the termites munching on the wood. That being said, yeah, noise could easily be an issue. Typically, the older teenagers don't really like going to skate parks like this. They like going out and doing their own thing without being subjected to rules and whatnot. So, that's a good thing and bad thing. I think this will attract younger kids with their parents, hopefully. Again, hopefully it's a positive impact from a business point of view, but it is kind of demonstrates why I think it's really important we reach out to the businesses down there and get their buy-in on this idea ahead of time. Really proactively reach out, not just send notices to them, because they tend not to read them. And I know that's not our fault or anything, but I just think it's in our own best interest as a city staff and moving forward to try to head some of these complaints off ahead of time. With regards to the noise is totally different during the day compared to how it is at night. And with the closure of it at sunset, which I support, I don't think noise is going to be near the issue that it would be if you left it open during the evening hours. I would only hope that you got that much traffic down there. So whatever you put in here is going to generate some amount of noise. So I'm okay moving forward with it, with the conditions and with the modifications that Commissioner Light has suggested. And like I said, there's been nothing here for 30 years. It'd be nice to have something that the community can use. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Walters.
Yeah, I also have some concern over the noise. I think and appreciate the neighbors' concern about it. I just looked on Google Map, and does the homes look like they're about 200-300 feet away? So it's not like it's fairly close. That being said, I think I'm comfortable that looks like a relatively low impact type of skateboard park for beginning and medium or skill type of players. I think the noise comes from the guys are doing all the tricks, and those tend to be the better type of skateboarders. Those tend to be the older kids. And, so if this is not a very exciting park for them, they may not want to come all the way down here, like Commissioner Kilroy said, so it could be a relatively low impact site. The comment that this can hold 40 skateboarders at a time, That does concern me a little bit. If it gets that popular, it might be an issue. We might consider lowering that occupancy rate for like a trial. And if it ever gets busier than that, then we can always consider going back and increasing up to the maximum. Because if the maximum is 40, 40 plus parents, you might get 50, 60 people down there. Who knows? The noise might carry at certain times of day. So I would suggest possibly that. I think the time restriction is good, and possibly lowering the occupancy and as a trial. And then if it becomes a problem with the neighbors, we can address it later on. If it's not a problem, we can up the occupancy rate at that point. So those are my comments.
Thanks. Commissioner Bauer.
Yes, when I was living in Hermosa, there was a couple kids who loved to do a little skateboarding, and they were just going off curbs, and it was loud. It now, granted, I don't know what it would be like at a couple hundred feet, but I'd love to have some data somehow before we move ahead, or some way that we knew that we could put, if noise is a problem, that we could figure out a way to deal with that before we move ahead with this. And also the comment of just making sure businesses haven't, I get it that it's been in the paper and they should be aware of this, but sometimes people are just ignoring things. So it'd be really, really good to make sure we have a lot of comment on this. Whenever we have had active comments here, they've been negative. We haven't had a ton of people show up and say, hey, we really want this thing. And we're okay, we're comfortable with it from the business standpoint. And now we're hearing from people who live in the condos who are now very, very concerned about it. So I want to make sure we address their concerns and really understand the impacts before we move ahead. That's just my take. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Kazan.
One more consideration. The bathrooms don't open till 8 a.m. I wonder, is it possible to have a recommendation for the hours of skateboarding to be, no earlier than 8 to dusk, but have the facility otherwise open? And I'm thinking back of your day starts very, very early when you have toddlers, and having just a kid walk around and, learn their gross motor skills walking up and down these steps is a very useful kind of welcome thing outside of the skateboarding hours. So I would suggest amending it for that. Skateboarding can't be until a certain time, but otherwise you can walk and otherwise use the features.
Thanks. Okay, I appreciate that comment. To comment on that, I suspect it would sort of take care of itself, since so many enforcement activities basically, are complaint based, and I'm not sure anyone would complain about a toddler going in there early. Okay, working through hands. Commissioner Bauer, do you have your hand up again, or is that from before? Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that.
Commissioner Light.
Yeah, I just I found a sound study from another city that showed that when skateboarders do tricks, the decibel rating at the source of the sound is 65 to 67 dBA. And when you attenuate that by 200 feet, it's 21 dBA. And when you attenuate it by 300 feet, it's 17.5 dBA, which is very, very low, well below skate noise standards in Redondo. Even the 65 to 67 is, that's above it, but that would be if you're right next to it. And we've got at least, my Google Earth says it's at least 200 feet to the closest facility. And that's straight line, not going by the slope distance, because the condos are well above the place the sound is generated. So I think with the attenuation of distance, we're going to get much lower than any Redondo noise ordinance, and well below what just normal traffic would be.
So more annoying to our outside diners.
Correct. But even then, you're what, 50 feet at least across the fairway. So it attenuates pretty quickly. I mean, it's an R squared, so it's by the radius squared.
Sure.
Thanks. Okay, Commissioner Walters.
I know Jim brought up the noise study. So there was a reference to a noise study. Was that in the packet? Was it an official one done for this or a comparable one?
I believe it was in the packet from the first time.
From the first time?
Yeah. So we had discussion on noise study and noise level at the range of the condos last time, and at that point we determined it would be acceptable and would be lost in the general background noise of the harbor, perhaps more on a Saturday afternoon than on a Tuesday morning or a Sunday at 2 a.m. God willing.
Well, I'd have to imagine this would be more of a weekend impact, right? So anything during the week would have to be after school from 3, 4 o'clock to sundown, so they got about 2 or 3 hour window to play and during the weekday. And then on the weekends, it'll be limited, lock it or limit the time from 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. to dusk, something like that. Then the ambient noise would be higher when there's more activity down on the pier. I think that's the issue. I think I hear what Jim is saying with the attenuation, and he's right. But it also, the ambient noise is relevant, so the ambient noise at nighttime is very low. So you're going to hear it, although there is attenuation. So it becomes more of a nuisance noise as opposed to a violation of any code issue. And during the weekends, when the ambient noise down there is higher, because of all the activity where the skateboarding should be going on, you would think it would just drown itself in there. So I think I agree with probably a time restriction. And I would say even 8 o'clock seems a little early. I would even go a little higher than that, just so if there's any ambient noise, low ambient noise in the morning, it might be disturbing to the residents. So I agree with the dusk limit at night, but maybe we think about a 9 or 10 o'clock start. Something like that.
How about a friendly amendment that says operating hours 9 a.m. to dusk?
I'll accept that.
And what do the commissioners think about the occupancy issue at all? Do we allow the full amount right away?
I think it's self-policing, number one. And number two, I don't think if you had 40 people in there, frankly, I don't see how they could all skate at the same time. They get bored of waiting their turn to use a particular thing. I think the number of people using it is going to be pretty self-policing. And I don't see how you could enforce it if you put a number on it. Just my thought.
All right. So as chair, I'll make a couple comments on Commissioner Light's motion and on the noise concerns. I sort of feel like we addressed the "do you want it here or not" question 2 years ago. And, we're now trying to focus on the design questions and the issues within the conditional use permit. So I don't want to disregard the noise concerns. They're certainly significant. We all have noise issues. I have noise issues at my house, and they've been difficult to deal with. But
We've lost you, Roger.
I thought it was just me.
No, Roger, we lost you.
I'm sorry, I think my microphone just changed.
There you go.
Get it along that back wall. One of my concerns with noise was that back wall would somehow focus noise. We've seen, focus noise issues being a problem at Lagoon and other places like that. So I hope we can mitigate the noise this way. One of the mitigations we discussed 2 years ago, and I forget his name, but there was a resident who was promoting this. One of the suggestions he had was that he had seen other skate facilities mitigate issues just by closing down, just by locking the gate. And we're not really able to do that here. So that's a concern I have. But if this becomes an issue with, use at night, overwhelming noise we can't mitigate, litter, graffiti, people using it improperly and not being nice to each other. I hope we can find a way to, close this down, secure it, and teach people they can't use it unless they behave with each other. So with all that, I think we're through discussion on the motion and time to call a vote on the motion with the friendly amendment. Commissioner Light, I see you have your hand up again.
Oh, I just wanted to address your focusing. If you look at where it would focus it, the curve there in that wall would focus it back to the not closest, a secondary building, which is 385 feet away. So you have even more attenuation.
Yeah.
And there's ways to mitigate it. If that turns out to be a problem, you can just put some acoustic stuff along the wall to absorb sound.
I think so, and I would hope so. And I've seen little acoustic panels do remarkable things. I just don't necessarily trust models. You're also an engineer, and all models are wrong. Some models are useful. So I really hope we can keep an eye on this and fix problems in the future with it. I'm not sure we have to add too much to the CUP at this point to fix those problems as things stand. Okay. With that, I think we go to a roll call vote.
I was just messaging Antonio to see if he has the final motion. There's some changes made. It might be good to just read it.
You want me to walk through it?
Yes, please.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, it did go pretty quickly there. So if we could just, for the record, I know that we're recording these, but we want to make sure that the resolution addresses the motion and anything that you add or change accurately. I know we went back and forth on the hours of operation. I think the last motion was from 9 to dusk, and that was the amended hours. And then there was 4 items that you had called out. If you could just repeat those again one more time.
Sure. The first was modify the CUP for operating hours 9 a.m. and dusk. The second, approve the resolution with the CUP change, provided that no graphics and the railing is to mirror what is used on the rest of the pier.
Right.
The third was recommend City Council direct staff to change the ordinance that prohibits skateboarding on the pier in parallel. The fourth was recommend that the City Council find funding for the full master plan.
Thank you. I was missing that third piece.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Light, sorry, one clarification. By dusk, do you mean sunset or do you mean 20 minutes after sunset?
Personally, I think sunset's the more definable. And it's earlier than dusk, so I'd prefer to stick with sunset, but everybody else used dusk, so I just went with it. But if everybody's okay, I'll modify that to be sunset.
Sunset.
Thanks, yeah, sorry, we're a nautical group, so I was being, pedantic.
Precise.
Okay, with that, I think we're up to a roll call vote. Unless I've missed anything, there's no.
Was there a second on that?
Yes, I seconded it.
Okay.
Right. So ready for a roll call?
Okay.
You should probably unmute yourself.
I don't show on myself as mute. Can you hear me now?
No, I just meant the rest of the commission.
Okay. I didn't. All right. Commissioner Light?
I think I'm going to vote yes on it.
Commissioner Kilroy?
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kazan?
Yes.
Commissioner Walters?
Yes.
Co-Chair Bauer?
I'm still a no.
And Chair Carlson?
Yes.
All right, yeah, Antonio, Andy, any parting words for the group?
I just want to thank you for your attention to this and direction. It's very clear, and we'll go to council next with the resolution and the minutes of the meeting, and try and let you know through Lori what they do if you are not watching yourselves.
Right.
Thanks for all your time tonight.
Oh, thank you for all your time, and Vince, thank you for attending as well.
Yep.
Yeah, great
Thanks, everyone.
design.
Good night.
Great design, Vince. We love it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
Ready to move forward. The next item is discussion regarding King Harbor Public Amenities Plan process and timeline. We wanted to agendize this item because we realized that the group hasn't talked about the public amenities plan since mid-December. So just to start with a few notes, the working committee has been busy, just recently met a couple weeks ago. And on the report, we just wanted to let you know that February will be busy for gathering more community feedback. So the first item is pop-up at the Riviera Village Farmers Market. I guess it would be this coming Sunday, the 20th. It will be 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock. That's breaking news as of this afternoon. Then the week after on Saturday, February 26th, pop-up at Perry Park from 12 to 4. Perry Park was selected because, first of all, it's in North Redondo. And also, if you've been to that park, they have so many different types of activities. Also on the 26th, it's the start of the Redondo Beach Little League. And even though the festivities start at Dominguez Park, the games will start at Perry Park around 2 o'clock. So that will be a good location for SWA. And then March 7th, the second virtual community meeting, still at 6:30 to 8 o'clock. So a lot going on in February. And again, wanted to give you a chance to chat about the process and also give the representatives from our working group, members of the commission, opportunity to share. So really, it's just want to kind of maybe if Roger wants to, Chair Carlson wants to start the conversation. It's really just an opportunity for you to share your thoughts about the public amenities plan.
Thanks. Yeah. And we're an informal group. I'm never offended at being called Roger. Yeah, so this stage of the amenities plan, we had an amenities meeting last Monday and saw a draft complete design, a draft of the draft, which will be shared at these public outreaches. So SWA has tried to capture the community input done through surveys and done through previous meetings. And they now have, some general ideas for the whole area and then specific ideas for each major section of the harbor area. And they're looking to get feedback on that and move forward. So, it's this next piece that's exciting. And then what'll follow on after that are, just more specific actual implementations. And some of the implementation is pretty simple. Some of it's something Public Works could do, probably with a little bit more budget. Some of it probably takes a little more outreach, but the Seaside Lagoon is probably the biggest part and probably takes some public funding. But there's definitely design work to come and additional work to come after this when people see what's in the amenities and they'll get approved. So I don't know if we will see the presentation plan for feedback. I hope that goes on the website in addition to all this public meeting. I haven't heard that or not. But, I hope it's on there for people who can't make it to these outreach sessions as well. Commissioner Light, your hand is up.
Were you finished with your?
Yeah. So the next thing you'll see is a draft plan to comment on, and it's this is the fun part. We've got something to throw about.
I'm wondering, I certainly saw the SWA proposal, but that schedule's kind of out the window. When is the first time the commission gets to weigh in on the draft? When do we expect the next meeting or the meeting after that, or?
So we are going to, the March 7th meeting is the second community meeting, and there'll be a third community meeting, and then that's where it's basically the, February to March, they have a shared draft plan for feedback. I don't know what was discussed in terms of when the commission, I know at the very tail end, they have multiple public hearings, but that's at the very end. So Elizabeth, I don't know if you recall when the commission may be able to give feedback prior to the final draft.
No, not specifically.
Then we'll have to,
I think the plan had been, I'm just making sure I'm not muted. I think the plan had been to have the commission go informally and individually to any one of these outreach meetings, being careful not to go as a group and violate the Brown Act. But the plan had been for the commission to go individually to the public workshops. The public workshop will be on March 7th. But Commissioner Light, you're right. We had not planned on bringing this back to the Harbor Commission until very much toward the end of the process, and hadn't really thought that through or addressed it again, or, kind of done a gut check on it until just now. So we could potentially bring SWA back for interim comment on the draft at the March 14th meeting. I'm not sure if that's in their budget or would be something they could do, but we could agendize that tonight and discuss it with them.
Well, even if they don't do it, and we should have the draft by then. If they're putting it out for the public, we could at least agendize it and give where we can talk as a group and not violate the Brown Act to give some course correction at least, so we're not adding more length onto the end of the process. We get to weigh in kind of mid-course correction, or at least feedback.
Right. Again, that is not something that either Elizabeth or I recall, so we will bring that up with the group, with SWA.
We don't necessarily need a formal presentation for SWA. If they put out the draft, we can just agendize it and discuss it amongst ourselves. I don't want to.
Right. Not necessarily to have a meeting that is hosted by them, but just to bring up the idea of having the commission as a whole review the draft plan.
Yeah, and discuss it without violating the Brown Act. That's
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'd actually make a motion that we add this to the next agenda.
I'll second that.
That seems to be the formal way we're going now.
Okay. So Chair, do you want to vote on that?
Sure. Let's just do it.
I'm not done with my comments.
Let's just do it.
Okay.
All in favor of agendizing the amenities plan for the next commission meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, and then the second thing, I just wanted to let the rest of the commission know related to this that Roger and I did go down to a meeting with Aquafarm, I think it is, the guys who are raising oysters down in Carlsbad at the NRG plant there. And there is some desire to make our harbor the educational center of excellence for aquaculture. And they are targeting potentially the Joe's Crab Shack site. So that's something for the folks who are representing the Harbor Commission on the amenities plan to take into consideration as you're providing feedback on that. Now, I'll stop there, and Roger, if you want to add more, or any of the city staff, I know Elizabeth was there. If anybody else wants to add anything, that's about the level I just wanted to cover tonight.
Yeah, the comment I would make on that is that I think it follows on after like almost every other area of the amenities plan. I think that's a follow-on issue. You know, in the amenities plan and these workshops and the discussion, you say to the public, do you want something educational in the harbor at all? If so, where do you want it? I mean, I think it's up to the public, not the guys from Carlsbad if they want an educational facility in the Joe's Crab Shack location, which, hinges on where the boat ramp location is. That said, it's exciting to have a potential purpose for it. And it does somewhat feed into the discussion when you start to see the potential and, the reasons for putting things where you put them. It helps give you the overall design for the overall area, which is something we've really wanted out of SWA and this amenities plan in the first place.
Yep.
So,
and first, I think it's a place to also get our CBAS program back.
There's potentially lots of educational things we could do in the harbor. This being one of them. There's lots of great potential there. Okay, thanks. Any other discussion on the amenities plan or where we are? I think we'll have it come back to us next week, and hopefully you all get a chance to see it online, if not at one of the pop-ups or at the community workshop. Okay.
Right. Elizabeth, is anyone want to speak on this item?
We don't have any e-comments. We do have Mark Hansen on the line, but I don't see his hand raised. So Mark, if you want to speak, would you raise your hand? Just want to make sure, Mark.
I just fully support that motion you just passed, bring it back to Harbor Commission in March. I think that's very, very smart for all the reasons you guys said. That's it. I look forward to that meeting. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. Okay, going back to the agenda, I think we are through everything up to the director's report.
Well, also one more thing about the public amenities plan. We do, SWA is currently in the process of putting together an email blast message about all the different meetings and pop-ups. And so I do expect to receive that this week. We'll also send it. We have a pretty large list of groups, community groups, that we'll also send that out to and ask them to then forward to their groups, individuals. All right, it's 8:47, so we'll just go ahead and start with the director's report. Please let me know if you have any questions. Prior meetings, wanted to start with the strategic plan meetings that were held on January 25 and 27. It's been a while since we got together and talked about strategic plans, but it was basically to determine 3-year goals and 6-month objectives. The strategic plan was approved formally by the council this past meeting on the 8th. And then our goal is to bring the strategic plan to you once the new director is on board, which I'll talk about at the very end. At the February 1 meeting, it was very exciting. We had the council approved two amendments with master leaseholders and one consent to an amendment, which bottom line is that we have Cheesecake Factory for another 10 years, which is very exciting. Their lease was going to expire 2023. So they are going to be investing a significant amount of money to improve the interior, the exterior, the parking lot. And also council approved the amendments with Jack Built, which is a master leaseholder to Cheesecake. Then also an amendment with Shade Hotel. So quickly, if you've ever been in what they refer to the former Triton Oil lot, which is Harbor Drive and Portofino Way. If you ever find your way into the lot, it's confusing, it's a little messy. So these amendments will allow more of a definition of which part of the lot Shade Hotel will use and Jack Built will use. It will also allow Shade to have the opportunity for their guests and employees to actually enter the lot off of Portofino Way and be able to use that lot. So for example, if they have guests that don't want to use the parking, the valet parking, they can easily, it's a little bit of a walk, but they can now use their room key and enter that lot. So that was really nice to be able to get those items done. Upcoming council items tomorrow, we have 3 leases, all for Pier Plaza. We have Shrimp Lover for another 5 years. They've been with us for quite some time. Cornerstone Construction and for a 5-year lease, and they're going to expand their current space by about 500 square feet. And then we also have a new lease with a gentleman named Randy Walters. He's basically renting a small office as a home office. And then some of you have been waiting for this too. Sometime in March, Community Services does plan on bringing the report to council about the city's sailing program. Miscellaneous follow-up items. I think most of you are aware that there was a meeting held on Saturday the 12th regarding the liveaboard issue. In attendance was Mike Wodzansky, our city manager, Mike Webb, our city attorney, and also Councilmember Lowenstein. Just as a brief reminder, the city does not have a direct relationship with the liveaboards, but staff has been asked to follow up on to do some research on a few items that were brought up at that meeting. Our favorite Yacht Clubway signal. The work is scheduled to start on February 16. Gold's Gym, I think Vicki asked about this before. We do not have any update on leasing right now for that piece of property. It was mentioned earlier, the Mondstadt Pier restroom. So again, those are currently 3 restrooms adjacent to the wood portion of the pier. Right now there are 3 restrooms and they will be turned into 2 ADA restrooms and 1 restroom and 1 regular restroom anticipated to end in May. And we're very excited about that because it is the first restroom to really go through a thorough facelift. I just wanted to give you a quick note about the 2022-2023 budget process. Something new was some new meetings were added to the budget calendar, and those will be 2 budget workshops. So we'll give you a reminder again in March, but March 29th, there's going to be a community meeting regarding the budget. And then the second budget workshop will take place in April at the Budget and Finance Commission meeting. Let's see, CARB. Today I received a copy of the February 8 letter that was sent from the Sports Fishing Association of California to CARB. I was just going to read, it's a very short cover, so I was going to do this. It was from Kenneth Frankie, again, to the Sports Association of California. It just says, and this is their update. We recently met with CARB staff and presented to them our current concerns. A core issue is the need to correct the data before making a decision on the future of the proposed regulation. You will find attached a letter to CARB from SAC setting the stage for our next meeting. There's a tremendous amount of work being done by our team to point out areas to accuratize data. This is an outstanding letter and one which we highly recommend you read. So we will provide this to you. We have 1 meeting scheduled in 3 weeks with CARB, followed by the next hearing, which is at the end of March. So that is a CARB update that we just received. Upcoming events, the 46th Annual Kite Festival returns to March this year. Last year it was in September. So it's Sunday, March 8th at 11 o'clock.
March what?
Pardon me?
What date?
Sunday, March 8th at 11 o'clock.
That's a Tuesday.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So I went, what date?
Let me see. That's right. So it would be the 13th.
Okay.
If I'm wrong with that, I'll let you know.
Okay.
And then upcoming council commission meeting, March 14th. I'm sure you're dying to know about the new waterfront director. There is one candidate in background, and we are hoping to hear of an announcement in the coming weeks. And the last update I will leave for Elizabeth because she has an announcement for you as well.
So happy news, but a little sad too. I've accepted the position of assistant to the city manager. So I'll be around for the next meeting to help Lori, but after that,
someone has to help me
here.
Oh, you deserve it. You work very hard.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, so we're happy for her and very happy she's not leaving the city. So she's just down the hall from me. So I'm happy with that.
You'll still see my face pop on here on occasion, I'm sure.
See what happens? We were nice to Stephen when he left. Now everyone's leaving.
Yeah.
We'll get some good people in. So.
Yeah, congratulations, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the report. Let's see. I had a couple questions. Do you know, can we be informed on the Yacht Club Way signal work or?
Well, what I can do is, on the 16th, I'll check in with the traffic engineer.
Okay. I mean, we've never reviewed that. And I would hate to have something that doesn't work put in there. It may be too late. So thanks.
You think after 7 years, it might be too late? I've been working on it for 7 years.
Well, we can, I guess we can blame the last director for that. There we go. And then as part of the strategic plan going into the budget requests, do you know if at this point there's anything extra for the harbor area? I know we were discussing, we never got a formal request in for the strategic plan, but we had discussed getting money in for sea level rise design. And then in general, along the way, we've just seen more money crop up, like needing more money to pressure wash the upper deck where the dining decks are and so forth. So do you know if there's any additional harbor area funding going in?
Well, at this time, I think the priority is to figure out next steps for the sea level rise. We have that vulnerability report that was done in 2019. And that is definitely on our radar to figure out for the budget. Stephen did remind us on when he left that that's something that we need to take a look at for the budget. So that's definitely on there.
Yeah, it'd be great to have, a little more design work done so that, whether it's federal infrastructure money or things like Cheesecake Factory improving their area, we have some kind of master plan to work with.
Yes. Yes, and Chair, thank you for the follow-up information you provided as well.
Thanks, sure. I think that's the only comment I had on the director's report. Anybody else have comments on the director's report? Commissioner Guzan, I see your hand up.
Yes, I was just wondering if there's any update on the parking. A couple meetings ago, Majestic had asked us to take on charging for the park, and we decided not to do that. But I've noticed that the parking is definitely more crowded than it used to be, and not necessarily at the park. A lot of just people using the rock area to fish. Just wondering if there's any developments there.
There hasn't been any further discussion since Stephen left, but we do hear from Majestic, and we do know that is something that we need to continue the conversation, but nothing specific to report at this time.
Okay. Yeah, it's almost like we don't have enough. We have enough spots for the park, but not enough spots for all that the area has, I guess. That this
a lot of users.
City, yeah. Thanks.
Any other comments on the director's report?
Okay.
Just one quick question. So the Cheesecake Factory has a new lease, but the city of Redondo is not the master leaseholder for that. Is that correct?
The master leaseholder is Jack Bill.
Right. And was there an extension of his lease?
By 5 years, and so it now mirrors, they're both at 2033 as an expiration date.
2033. Okay, thank you so much for that information.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're up to items from staff. Anything there?
No, there's nothing.
Okay, then we are up to commission items and referrals to staff. Let me go around the room as I see folks. Commissioner Curzon, any direction to staff?
Nothing else.
Staff?
No.
Commissioner Walters?
No.
Thanks. Commissioner Bauer, any referrals to staff?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Commissioner Light? You're muted.
You're
sir.
muted.
Sorry. Would like to hear an update on dredging and where we're going to put the spoils if we're locked in on that, because that has implications with the aquaculture stuff as well.
All right.
That's it.
Okay.
Thanks. And as a comment on that, I've been watching the minutes of the Army Corps Nearshore Committee, and I haven't seen this issue come up there. Commissioner Kilroy, any staff?
I'm good. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Thank you. Commissioner Callahan.
No, I'm anxiously waiting to see what happens at the intersection of Harbor Drive and Yacht Club Way.
We will keep you updated on that.
Thank you, Miss.
Thanks. So I have a comment for staff. I'm not sure if this is a referral to staff or how this would work. We've discussed opening up that the parking lots, the flat parking lot would be opened up to pay by app parking, which I think is in process at some point. Here's my question. In the wintertime and through a lot of weekdays in the summertime, that lot is pretty much empty. And I would love to encourage having city residents come down and use the pier area more and, buy lunch on a Tuesday. Would it be possible to allow free parking in that area with a standard city meter permit? And I don't know if this is the right question for you or for somebody else or for council, but if we look at the number of days that lot is empty, it'd be great to have one more car there buying one more cheeseburger.
And what did you just repeat what you were saying about with having a city sticker or a parking sticker? Yeah, the city already sells parking meter passes, which are good for parking at any meter in the city, including the village.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And maybe we allow that sticker to park at the pier. You tell me when it's not busy. Weekdays. Not weekends, not Mother's Day, but maybe on weekdays it's free parking there with a city parking pass. Just a thought, because I just see a lot of empty spaces there, and if allowing a little more traffic down there would help.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell me I should go to the council with this suggestion, I'm happy to. I thought of it the other day, and I'm not quite sure what to do with it.
Yeah, we would have to do some research. I mean, ultimately, the council obviously votes on making any changes to an overall parking resolution that dictates the different parking rates for parking stickers within the harbor. How we get there is, I'm not quite sure about that. So we can talk about it internally and see what we might be able to do.
And Chair Roger, I had this vision of having L2 car chargers everywhere, or a lot of them, which would, bring people there just for a couple hours of charging. And they have a charging lot in Hermosa, and it's full a lot, so it does work.
Thanks.
Okay.
I think we'll definitely get to that. Okay.
that was all I had for referrals to staff. And we had Jim Light's earlier action to get aquaculture on the agenda for next time. With that, I think we are up to item O, adjournment.
Wait, just to be clear, is it the aquaculture that Jim wants to get on the agenda for next time, or was it the
Public amenities.
public amenities?
And aquaculture, I thought.
Okay, we'll need to do a vote on that one as well, separately, right, Lori?
Did I misunderstand what you said?
I did. Commissioner Light, would you please let us know if you mentioned aquaculture as well? I just heard the public amenities plan.
Yeah, I just had to bring the public amenities back, but I did separately bring up the aquaculture. I mean, we could vote on that now if you wanted to as a separate item.
Yeah, if you would like an aquaculture presentation in the next meeting, we need to vote on that agenda item now.
Chair, I would also just, if we want to be completely honest about timing, I would suggest in the near future for the aquaculture. You know, Elizabeth is assisting, but it is just me right now for the next month. So I don't know if I could commit to that. Chair, Commissioner Light, are you open to near future or future meeting?
So I'm going to defer to Roger because you were down there with me. So, you know, what do you think we should do?
Well, I think this would be a presentation from an outside party.
Yeah.
And hopefully not put any more work on your desk or on any of our desks. I think.
And then I would also, I know everyone wants to enjoy what's left of their meeting, but I would also ask Elizabeth as from the office of the city manager.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're mindful of the timing, right? If the public does want an educational component, it'd be nice to hear that first during the next community meeting. And then, you know, if that really does come out as something that the community strongly desires, then maybe we time it a little bit better so it's not right the following week, but maybe April wouldn't be such a bad idea. Just to
it's like putting the cart before the horse. Yeah, let's get the amenities going.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, some of this is vision type stuff, and I don't think the public's going to come up with, let's put an aquaculture center at Joe's Crab Shack.
Well, fair enough. They may not, but they, you know, I have heard people say that they'd like something that's different than other nearby, you know, educational amenities. It's not just one more, you know, aquarium.
I think we're getting out in the weeds.
So I don't mind postponing it, as people have said.
Is
So
there
then
a funding cycle on grants that plays into when we hear them at all?
I don't think so, and I don't think they'd be looking for grants until they had a permanent home. That's kind of why C-Lab had to leave.
Gotcha.
So I'd make the motion to add it to the agenda for April.
Okay, any second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Any
I'd
opposed?
prefer to let staff decide when to put it in. Personally.
Yeah, I still think we're putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
Lori, maybe we can do a roll call vote for this one, just to make sure.
Yep, that one got confusing. Thank you. Okay. All right, let's do a roll call vote on whether to have presentation from a potential waterfront education facility, the Carlsbad Aqua Farm, on the April meeting.
Right. Commissioner.
Oh, so I'd like to put in a substitute amendment then or substitute motion before you do a roll call vote on this one. And that would be the same motion, except leave it to staff when it's actually scheduled. if somebody wants to second that.
I'll second that.
All right. So roll call, Commissioner Light,
I'd vote no on the substitute.
Commissioner Kilroy,
Yes.
Commissioner Callahan,
Yes.
Commissioner Kazan,
No on the substitute.
Commissioner Walters,
Yes.
Co-Chair Bauer,
No on the substitute.
and Chair Carlson.
No on the substitute.
So
4-3.
4-3. Okay.
4-3 as a note to the substitute.
Okay, so where we stand now is we have something for the April agenda, and we do have the March meeting where we can modify that.
We'll need to vote on that as well.
Yeah, about to say, the first one hasn't been voted on.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right.
Okay.
What are we doing?
Another roll call for the original.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Light,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilroy,
No.
just gonna say, Commissioner Callahan,
No.
Commissioner Kazan,
Yes.
Commissioner Walters,
Yes.
Co-Chair Bauer,
Yes.
Chair Carlson.
Yes. But we must be finally getting somewhere. Our votes aren't always unanimous anymore.
What does that mean?
I want Elizabeth to come back again.
All in favor?
I'll still be
have to have
around.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
need
something controversial.
more nail biters, right?
Okay. All right, I think we can all agree on the next one. I think we are up to motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, everyone.
Right. Thank you,
Happy
everyone.
Valentine's Day.
Happy birthday, Roger.
Oh, and happy